Okay. Consider like we are working on a project. Okay. In that project, we have, let's say, city drop down, state drop down, or department designation drop down. Okay. And those data, whatever the drop down data we have to show, that is coming from API. Okay. And almost, let's say, almost every alternate page, we need to show that drop down data. Okay. We are working on a project, right? We have some data which is going to be needed in every almost page. Okay. And that data is coming from the API. So on every page, we'll be making the API call, correct? Because we that data is going to come from the API. But let's say city, master, designation, or department, this kind of data is going to change every day. This kind of data is going to change every day.
Yes.
No.
Let's say you are working on an application, department or designation, a company application is there. Department date designation, it's not going to change every day. Like once it will be created like that, now hardly one or two department or designation might be changed, right? So this data is not going to change, right? But still, on visiting every pages, we are going to make the API call and getting the same data again and again. So is it good or can we do something about it?
चितन एक
First,
बार वापस कर सकते हो रिपीट मैं
देखो,
अभी जस्ट ज्वाइन
upon
किया
project, we are working on a project. Okay. Inside that project, we have department designation drop down or even state or city drop down also. And that data we are getting from the API. Okay. And then almost across every pages, you are going to need that data. Almost every page, you are going to need that data. So what you normally do on the page load, you will make the API call and you will get the data and that you will display into your drop down. This is what we do. But that data is not going to change every day. So same data you are going to get in every component also. Again, same API call you are going to make. So is this correct or can we do something about it? Unnecessary, we are making the repeated call. Na? Same data we are going to get. So shall we make repeated API call or can we do something about it?
वी आर केसिंग वी नीड टू केस
Huh?
We can store data in some place and use it.
Right? So let's say you are on the admin page. Okay. On admin page, you have made the API call, you got the data. So you will store that data somewhere. And let's say you navigate to user page. Again, in the user page also, you need that data. So what you will check? If the if previously data is already there, you won't make the API call. Correct? So that you reduce to your API call. And application will also be fast because whenever you make the API call, obviously some time will be waste, na? Right? So instead repeated API call or something data which is we are going to need again and again, instead of making that API call again and again, we are storing it somewhere. That's the best way. Correct or no? See, topic is hard.
यस
You need to contribute. I cannot, if I'm only talking, then I don't get the confidence like you are understanding or not. Okay. So let me know if you are getting it or not. Because if you understand the scenario, then only state management you will understand. Okay. It's not something code which we write and you will understand. You need to understand the scenario, then only you will understand why you will need this. Okay. Now, so in our application, we need a place where we will store some repeated data, a data which we are going to need multiple time. Okay. Let's say you logged in. Currently logged in data where we are storing,
Local storage.
लोकल
right?
स्टोरेज
Local storage. After local storage, after local storage, where we are storing
आफ्टर लोकल
And service.
service, right? Service variable to. So service also what we did, normal service variable we created. Instead of normal service variable, what we can do,
Subject and behavior
right?
subject.
Behavior subject.
Not subject, behavior subject, because subject will be like, can we use subject or behavior subject?
Behavior subject.
Behavior
Behavior
subject
subject.
only, na? Because subject will be valid only for that particular component, right? We need to track that data in every component, so we have to go for a behavior subject. Okay. So we can store the data into behavior subject, and in all the component we can subscribe to that. Okay. So now NGRX come into the picture. Whatever you can do with behavior subject, same thing we can do with NGRX also. No difference. Okay. Whatever we can do with behavior subject, how we store the data, how we read the data, same thing is there in NGRX also. But it comes from a library. Okay. There will some a proper way to handle the state. It is there. So we have to understand the NGRX also. Okay. So NGRX is a third party library to manage the state. Let's say in your project you have some data that you need to be shared across the application, right? In all the component you want to share that data. It's kind of a store. Okay. In that store you are going to store the data. Wherever you need that, you access that store by using some key, and you get the value. Just like how you are storing the data into the local storage, key value per data. Just like the same, you will store the data into NGRX store. And wherever you need the data, you will read the data by using that key. Okay. But it needs a scenario. If your application has the data, like the API call I told you, right? Or something, we don't implement store to store the logged in user role, because it is unnecessary to create all that structure just to store that. We have service and everything for that. Okay. Again, if we refresh now, that NGRX store data will go away. Same thing happening with the service also, na? So it is the same, no difference in that also. Okay. So when we have to manage state in our application, we have to go for a NGRX state management. Okay. Now, first we have to install the package. So ng add the package name in @ngrx /store. Enter. So it is saying like current version it has found is 19.2.0. So we will go with that. Enter. It is done. Okay. Again, in the interview also, no one will ask you to implement the whole store NGRX thing, but they will ask you theoretically, like what you do. First, we create action, reducer, select. We have to register the store, and then we read the store by using selectors. Like that, only steps you need to explain. Okay. But again, it's not guaranteed. Some company will ask you also to implement that also. We don't have control over it. But at least basic, even if you are explain, that is also enough. Okay, for 9 or 10 years of experience, I'm also giving interview, so no one is asking us to implement everything. But they will ask you like what are the steps, what you do, right? That thing they will ask. So you just need to mention that steps carefully and confidently. That's okay then. It's not installing. No such file found. Let's install again. It has installed over here. Why you got error? Let's try it again. Okay, package already updated. Okay. So first thing you need to install the NGRX package. You can see entry has been added over here. Then we will create a folder. So inside app, we will create a folder that will be store. Okay. Now in store, as I said, store consider like it's a shop. Okay. Or it's just like a local storage where we store the data by key value per data. Let's say currently we will just go with the simple example counter one. So let's say you want to create a counter example. Okay, you have some counter data and that you want to share across the various application. Now, what can you do with counter? That counter, what operation you can
Increasing
do
and
with,
reducing.
right? Increasing or decreasing. So first you have to create the action. Action means what type of operation you can perform with your data. If our example is counter, what you can do, either increment or decrement it. Correct. If it's a login store, logged in user data, what operation you can do with logged in data?
Login
Okay.
or log out, like
Let's say I'm saying once in your store you have a logged in, you are going to store the logged in data also. Now tell me what operation you will do with
authentication,
logged in data.
like routing,
Check
like
username.
No. Same thing you are with counter, what you are going to do,
Increment, decrement.
right? Now what with logged in data, what you will do?
Check username and password.
No, no, you already got check username and password. Why you will do it over there? You will API will do that, na, in login API. After
Yes.
login API, you will get the data. That data you will store.
store the
Create a
data
token.
according to
You will
the
store and remove. That's it, na.
Yes.
Take the example of counter. In counter, what you are doing? Increment and decrement. Okay. Just like that, when I say logged in user data, so you will store it on click of login, and on click of logout, you will remove it. That's it. Operation. What operation you are going to do with the data you are storing? Okay. So
Yes.
that's what I'm saying. You need to understand the scenario, then only you will able to relate to it. Okay. So first thing we have to create is the action. So action will represent what operation you are going to do with your stored data. Okay. So let's create new file, counter dot action dot ts. Okay. Now here we have to create the action. So first export const, let's say increment is equal to, now it's just a constant variable. Now inside this variable, what we have to store? Our action. So create action. Okay. So see, it is suggesting the import. Once I select on it, it will add it from the Ngrx store. Okay. Create action. Now here we are going to create the action. Now we have to specify the name of the action also. Single quote, square bracket. Here we will say increment. Sorry, first here we have to provide the state name. Means from your store, what is the state which you are going to change? Counter on. Okay, this is your first action. You here you can write anything, but we try to prefer with our state name and our action name. Okay, this is our first action. Export const on decrement is equal to create action, round bracket, single quote, counter decrement. Okay. So here we have created our two action. Okay. Increment and the decrement. Fine. After action, action doesn't do anything. It was here we are just describing like what we are going, what operation we can do with our state. We don't have logic over here. Okay. Now, next thing we have to create the reducer. So reducer is a place where we actually write our logic. Okay. So counter dot reducer dot ts. Okay. Now here we have to create the reducer. Now reducer, let's say we are talking about the counter example. So counter we need to initialize from somewhere, either 0, -1, 1. We should initialize, na? Let's say you are, what operation you are going to do with counter? Increment and decrement. So obviously it's a value. So from somewhere you need to start it. Correct or
Yes.
not? So whenever you are storing the data into the store, some initial value you need to provide. Okay. So let's create that. Export const initial value is equal to, let's say our counter we will start with 0. Okay. Now we have to create our reducer. So export const counter reducer is equal to create reducer. Okay. Now see what data we need. How many parameters are there? How many parameters are there? Anyway, what's the first parameter? What's the first
Initial
parameter?
stage.
Initial state, right? As I said, reducer is a place where you are actually going to do the operation. Like action is the place where you describe what operation you are going to do. But reducer is a place where you are actually going to write the logic. Okay, where you are actually going to implement the operation, what you are going to do with your initial, with your state. So first parameter is like initial state. So that is initialize value. Second. Now here you need to, how many actions we have? Two. So you need to respectively provide the implementation of those actions. So by using on method, on, then here you need to provide action. Okay. Which action? So on increment. See, it is coming from our action. So if the action is this, means our operation is this, what we need to do? So we need to get the current state, then state plus 1. So if our action is on increment, what we are going to do with our current state, we are just going to increment it. Okay. Comma on our second action on decrement state. Here we will get our counter. Okay. So that's what we are doing it. -1. Okay. So what we did, we created two actions, increment action and the decrement action. Then we created reducer. Inside that reducer, we have implemented our two actions also. Means what logic we are going to perform on that particular action. Okay. Now, so we created action, then we created reducer. Next thing, we have to register this. Means now we have to create the store. But where do we register the store? So into our app config. Okay. But first now we will create our uh, means as I said, it's a store. So in store, we can store multiple data, counter, logged in data, state data, city data. It can be multiple, right? So we have to create interface of that. So what type of data you are going to store into your store? So export interface app store. Currently we are in our store, we are just going to store the count data, right? So we will just store only one key, that is count. Data type will be number. Okay. Now, so now if we have to go to our app config. It's not added by default. Yeah, it is there. See, once we install the package, now by default provided store will be there. Now in this provided store, you need to register your store. Okay. Curly bracket. Now our store name is count. Now here you have to provide the your reducer. For this count variable, what is your reducer? So for every state, okay, for every state you store into your store, you will have different reducer. Let's say you have logged in data, so logged in reducer will be there. You have city data, you have city reducer.ts. For every state, for every data you store into your store, you will have different reducer for it. Okay. So currently we are dealing with the count. So for count, we have count reducer. So count reducer. Okay. So this is how we have registered our store. Our state name is count. And for this count state, this is our reducer. Okay. So three steps we have done. Action we have created, then reducer we have created, and then in app config we have registered our count store. Okay. Now we have to go to our variable. Sorry, our component. Let's say Which component we will use? Let's say in layout component we will do. In layout component we have navbar. Let me hide this drop down. So here from layout component we will change it, and then in another component we will try to get it. Okay. Span. First we will need two button, right? Button. Here I am saying minus, and second button I am doing as plus. Okay. So in layout component, we have two buttons, plus and the minus. So on click of respective button, we just need to update the counter, and on click of minus, we need to reduce it. Okay. So now in our component.ts, first we need to integrate our store. Okay. Just like how do we inject our service? Now, just like that, we have to register our store. Fine. So constructor, round bracket, curly bracket. Now here we have to register our store. So private store. Okay. Data type will be store. Now from store, you have to, what do we say? Means we are just like we create a service, right? So just like that, we are creating a service of our store. Whatever the operation you are going to do with your Ngrx store, that you will be doing with this store. Okay. Now, so in this store, we have the data that is count. Now you need to read that data. So consider like in our subject or subject behavior. How do you read the data from subject or behavior subject?
To subscribe it.
Right? We subscribe it. So just like that, we will create an observable. So counter colon observable. What type of data we are going to get? Data type
Count.
number na? Counter number only na? Okay, we created an observable. Now in this observable, what data we need to store? So we need to read the data from our store. So this dot counter is okay. We didn't specify the data type of the store. What was the app store? So this is our interface of the store. Let's add the input. Now from this store, you need to read the data from your store. To read the data from your store, we have some select method. So this dot store dot, we have to use the pipe operator. Okay. From RxJS. And inside that we have to use select method from our store, because select method is present in our RxJS also, but we have to use it from our store. So that's why we are using pipe, because this same thing we have it in a RxJS also, select, and same thing is present in the store also. So it should not consider this select from the RxJS. So that's why we are using pipe. Inside that pipe we have to use the select. So select, then round bracket, what's our state name? Count. Okay. So this is what happening. We are reading the data from our store, but in store we can store multiple data. So from your store, what you need? So you need count. Okay. Now we have got observable. So how do we print the observable data into the HTML?
With a sync pipe.
A sync pipe. Okay. Now this counter, I will print it over here. Okay. Let's just see this. If we are able to get the initial value 0, it should print. It's breaking somewhere. Where it is breaking? Header. On app config, it is breaking. Provided router. Let's check the terminal if it is breaking over here. Let's stop it again. I think sequence is wrong. Ngif also it is not understanding. Ngif where experience component. Property experience list does not exist. Nagarjun or someone will push some code. Hmm. What was the hardcode login for chat? Okay, 0 is there. I think it doesn't have that color. Okay, so see 0 is there. Why 0 it is coming? Because when we created the state, we provided initial value as our 0. So if I initialize it to 13, see 13. So whatever the data we have got into store, we are able to read it. Okay. How do we read the store data? By using select method. And you have to provide the key, like which key data you need. Understood? Now, on click of plus, we need to increment the store. Okay. So click increment counter, just like that, decrement counter also. Let's create both the method. Okay. Now, what is the action? Why do we need action? What's the use of action? All right, just now I told you what's the use of action,
From the operation.
right? So now we have to perform the operation with our store. On click of increment and decrement, we are going to do the operation, right? So we have already said like what operations are allowed, only increment and decrement. So this dot store dot dispatch method is there. Okay. And on dispatch, you need to provide what it needs, what type of data it needs, dispatch
Action
action, na? Right? So our action name is on
on increment.
decrement. This is decrement, na?
Decrement.
Okay. So say it is coming from action. So that action you need to provide, but you need to execute it. Okay. And over here, this dot store dot dispatch on increment we will execute. So see, you are doing some operation with your store, but along with the action, because you cannot call the reducer directly. How reducer will execute? When you invoke any action, see what happens now. When you execute this line, it will go over here. It will create this action we are executing. So this action we are implementing over here. It's like a switch case. When this action get executed, this piece of code will execute. When this action get executed, this piece of code will execute. Okay. Now see. See. Why it's reloading? Page is reloading. My page is reloading. We have button only now. Let's add type. I think it is by default taking submit. Page is reloading. See, we have this button inside the form tag. Okay. Whenever you have button inside the form tag, make sure you add the button type. Otherwise, it will behave like a input type submit and it will post the page. That's why our page was reloading. Okay. See, we are able to increment. We are able to decrement also. Okay. Now, like here only we are increment and here only we are decrement, but it's not like that. This data is coming from our store. Okay. Now, this same data, I will try to read it in our dashboard also. Dashboard. Again, we need to create one more variable, counter, colon, observable, data type number, okay. This dot counter. Okay, we need to inject our state also. Private to work. Store our interface name. So this dot store dot pipe select and our store name, that is count. Okay, and this again async data, so we need to use the async pipe. Okay, after total employee, I'm doing the counter. Okay, let's do it over here also, and in the experience component also I'm doing the same. After add experience, I will just copy paste now. Okay. Observable. Okay. So we are accessing the store in three component: experience component, dashboard component, and the layout also. Async pipe we need to add. Let's see now. Okay. So this is the initial. Let's say here also see 13 is there. Okay. If I increment, here also it incremented, here also. Getting it? Now if I go to the experience, here also I'm getting the value 16. Understood? If I reduce, here also it reduce. Again, if I go to the dashboard, here also updated value I'm getting. Now understood? Forget about the code, but the idea. So we have something store, okay? And there we are storing some data, and that data we are able to access in all the component overall the application. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, questions?
Sir, service also will do same thing, right, sir?
Yeah, same thing as I said. Now, whatever we do with subject behavior, subject, now it will do the same thing over here. Okay. If your project has some data that is going to be stored, means which type of data you have and that data you need across multiple component. If you have that scenario, then only store will be. For storing the logged in data, we don't create the store. Same thing we can do with our with subject behavior, right? So why to implement this much of code and install this library? Okay, so you need a specific scenario, then only you can use the store. Not for every project we need the store. Because same thing we can do with our behavior subject also. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
In layout component, we have called the method, right?
Right.
So we not need to call the method in employer.
Anywhere na. See, let's say in experience, let's say we did increment and decrement. Let's say from somewhere you need to reset it also. So we will create one more action. Okay. Export const on reset is equal to create action. Okay. Now we have created one more action. Now, since action is, we have created one more action. So next thing will be reset. We have to add the logic for it also. So again, on method will be there on reset. What you will do on reset?
Start
will
from
do,
Value 0, sir.
value.
right?
Sir.
Now here we are getting the old value. State. Let's initialize with 0. Now how do we reduce it? State. How do we reduce the value now? It's like existing state value. We got it over here. Existing state or initial value we to pass. No, something is wrong. Something else was imported. State. Okay. Now, let's say from experience component, you need to reset it. Okay. Reset. Click. So from layout component, you are incrementing and decrementing. And in other component, you are reading the data. And from reset component, you need to reset it. Okay. So let's create this function. So how do you change the data from our state? Now I need to reset it. So how do you change the data from our state? Which method you will call? If you have to do something operation with your store, what method you will call? Just now we have seen the dispatch method. So this dot store dot dispatch, and dispatch needs what? Dispatch needs
Action.
action. Okay, on reset. Okay, see now. So by default we have 13, 14. Let's say if I go to the experience, I want to reset it. See, got 0 here also and here also. Again, if I go to dashboard, see 0. Understood?
Yes, got it.
Clear? Like
Yeah.
this. So it's a see. Let's say I had around 9 years of experience. From last 7 years, I'm working only with Angular. Okay, and right now I started the preparation, and then I have implemented this for the first time. Okay, after 7 years, I have implemented this for the first time last 2 months back. Before that, I used to know this theory, everything I used to know, but I didn't implemented it yet. Okay, so it's not mandatory, or don't feel like it is hard. It's not that hard. Once you implement it once, then you will understand it. Okay. Even if you in the interview you are not able to understand, you are not able to recall everything, just mention the step. First we create the action, then whatever we create the action we have to implement in the reducer, then we register our store into our app config, right? And now whenever we need to read the data, by we use select method, and we have to provide the our state name, right? Whenever you have to create perform some operation, we use the dispatch method, and what we pass in the dispatch, whatever the action we said. That's it. 4 to 5 steps are there. Clear?
Yes, sir. Certain is it
Yes.
similar to Redux?
Yeah, similar to Redux. There we have Redux toolkit are similar. There also we have action, right? In React also we have action. I don't know, like the latest version has something else, but in the previous version in the React we had the action reducer. Same thing was over there also. Okay. One more library is there in React, just like Redux now. Something is there which do the same thing, but concept is same. Okay.
So Redux is used for the make filter, like that type of operation we need to perform. That's why we are using it. For
No,
which concept?
Redux is we use it in React, not Angular. That is
Okay,
only limited to React.
okay.
Same thing what we are doing it over here with Ngrx. Same thing we do in React by using Redux. Okay,
Okay, got it.
just a different library. Clear, guys?
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, can you please summarize it? Because I didn't understand the topic that much. I'm like confusing.
Okay. हिंदी में बताओ.
No English.
Okay. See, consider store is like local storage is clear to you. What we do with local storage?
We are used to store the data.
Right? Wherever we need to store the data, we use the local storage. How we store the data into local storage? Key value
Key
pair data,
value
na?
pairs.
Right? By using key, we store the data, and by using key only, we read the data. Okay. Consider that is there, but it's, let's say you store the data into local storage, and to read the data again, you need to run that particular line, local storage.get. It's not
Yes.
dynamic, right? Whenever your
Yes.
local storage data gets updated, it doesn't notify anywhere, right? Again, you need to read the data, then you will get to know if the data is updated or not. So with store, it's reactive. Okay. It's like
Okay.
whenever your store value will get changed, wherever you are, you will get the latest value. That thing
Okay.
is not possible with local storage, because that local storage dot get value, again, that code you need to run again, then only you will read the latest value. So whatever we used to do with local storage, same thing we can do it over here. Okay. It's like a store. In store, you can store multiple data. Okay. And now what operation you can perform with that store, that is nothing but action. So action is like, let's say we are just storing the counter example, right? Counter value we are storing. So with counter, what you can do, you can increment the counter,
Only
decrement.
counter is there,
No,
so
no, no. In log, let's say you want to store the logged in data. So again, logged in data also, logged in user data also you can store. So let's say you are storing the logged in data. What operation you can perform? On click of login, you will get the logged in data, you will store it. And on click of log up, you will remove it. Correct?
yes.
Okay. So what operation you are going to perform with that data, like that action you will create. So for counter state, you have created 3 actions: increment, decrement, and reset. So you create the action first. Actions are what operation you can do with your state. Okay. Then you have to create the reducer. Reducer is a place where you implement the action. You created 3 action, so you have implemented what we can do with this action. Okay. On increment, what we are going to do, we are going to update the existing state, reduce it by 1, and we are initializing with 0. But when we create the reducer, we have to initialize our state with some value. So we are providing this 13 over here. So this is our initial value. So action and the reducer. Then from your component, wherever you need to read the data from your store, what you do, you create an observable and this dot store dot pipe, and what your store name, state name, count. Because in your store, you can store multiple data, na? Count, logged in data, city list. Again, so many things can be there. So what data you need? So count. Select means from your store, you are selecting the data. But what key? Count. While
Okay.
getting the local storage, we specify the key, na? Local storage or get item, and we pass the key. Just like that
Yes.
over here. Okay. So this is how
Okay.
you get the data. Let's say you want to reset it. So this dot store dispatch method you call, and in dispatch you have to pass the action. What option, action you need to perform with your state. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else? See, first time you won't get it. You need at least 2, 3 project you need to do it. Then only you will understand. I also done the same thing. That's why now I got the confidence. Okay. Clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Those who are going to prepare or those who are preparing, you cannot run away from the store. Just implement 2 or 3 project. And if you mention, obviously, when you are implementing 2 or 3 times, you will be able to explain it. First, you create action, then reducer. Whatever the action you create, you implement in reducer. You have to register the store. To execute any action, you use the dispatch method. And to read the data from your store, you use the select method. 4 things are there. If you explain that also in the confidently, that's okay. No one will ask you to implement everything and write it down. They also know, like sometimes we don't remember the syntax. Okay. Because this is one time thing. We are not going to do it multiple times. Okay. Fine. Anyone else having any question?
Sir, after this class, can you stay back for a minute?
Yeah. Anyone else having any question?
Chetan,
Yeah.
when we create our action, right?
Hmm.
So we given something in the square bracket counter on increment, right? So
This is
what is
just
the syntax actually? Yeah.
here you can specify anything. It's a string value, correct?
Yeah.
So we can provide anything.
What is the use of this actually? Is
It's
it
just
just for another?
for, let's say you are debugging, right? What action is going to perform. Here you know this is your variable name, but what it actually does, right? Whenever we have to print it, so this will come into handy. What action it is going to print, right? It's just description.
Okay.
Okay. You can write it anything, but we try to follow in square bracket. We provide instead of counter, it should be count. Our, what do we say? State name. Okay. It's just a format we follow, standard we follow. Here should be your state name and what action you are performing, what you are doing with this state. Okay. Logging purpose we use it. Anything you can put because it's a string value, na?
Yeah,
Whatever you write it in string, it's not going to use it anywhere. It's just for our purpose, logging purpose.
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
But it has a overloaded method also, seems.
It has
It's a overloaded method, seems, because
overloaded.
can you I mean remove the bracket and open again the first bracket.
So many parameters for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
We
So
have three types of
three
things.
methods are there. Yeah.
We can pass the value also along with the action.
Mm-hmm.
Three parameters are there.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone try to implement, then only you will get it. Okay. Or before this also not try to implement the same thing with your behavior subject. Whatever we did over here, try the same thing with behavior subject. Then implement this. Then you will understand more. Whatever we were able to do with subject behavior, same thing we are doing it over here. Their code was very less. Here code is more. Okay. Fine. Okay, tomorrow can we connect? We can complete this project. Surya and Nagarjun, if you are okay, just push the code. Whatever is remaining, I will do it today. And anyone is preparing apart from Abhishek?
I cannot connect tomorrow.
Yeah, we will just complete the project. Anyone is else preparing? If not right now, also not like let's say after 2 months, 3 months, you are going to prepare. Let me know. Again, we will go through the interview preparation also. Okay. Abhishek left. Okay. Anyone else need any topic again? Something is remaining, let me know.
Micro contents.
Yeah, Mike Brunton, like basic only I know. We will try that tomorrow.
So the testing, how can
Testing
we
is
test?
remaining, no?
We'll try to cover that encryption decryption what we discussed yesterday.
It's very easy actually.
Yeah.
Let me. What's the library name? What is that library? Crypto.js. Okay. So Crypto.js is the library which we have to install. Once we install it, it has two methods, encrypt and decrypt. Okay. See, no, it is, and why it is not providing Angular code. Let's try ChatGPT. It's just a external package. You install it. It has encrypt function and decrypt function. What's the main thing when we do the encryption and decryption? Forget about Angular or what should be there when we say encryption and decryption. Something
You
will
need
be
a public key, private key.
key, right? So
Okay.
that's it. So we have that in crypto.js. We have to create our key. Whenever we encrypt, we have to specify the key. Whenever we decrypt, we specify the key. Likewise, it will do the encryption and the decryption. Okay. CRY crypto.js Angular. So they will have a service where by using that service we may use it. Right. See, this is the function. What data you need to encrypt and your secret key. So crypto.js, there are multiple algorithm on that. Which algorithm you need and the encrypt method, data and your secret key. So this is how you encrypt the data. And let's say you want to read the data and you want to show it somewhere. But before showing it, you need to decrypt it. So that is your ciphertext. Your key means which key value you need. No? It's just like key value per data. So ciphertext means the data which you have stored, key name and the secret key. And again, you are converting back to the, sorry, this is No, this is encrypt data, decrypt data, white needs ciphertext, encrypt and decrypt. Cipher means it is the cipher encryption service. These are the different algorithm they have. That's the cipher.
Cipher is encrypted text.
Okay, algorithm only. The result of your encryption.
It's an encrypted text actually.
Okay, encrypted text means when you encrypt, you in return you get encrypted text.
Yeah,
If you want to decrypt that, you need to pass that
yeah.
encrypted text. So
Yeah,
that's that.
ciphertext is the encrypted text which we
Encrypted
use.
text. Okay. So whatever the secret key you use while encryption, same thing you need to use it. If you're working with .NET now, we
Hmm.
have a let me ask one minute. Okay. One more is there, RSA. Let's say you are in this is an intro question. They will say like when you make the API call, okay, you pass the data, but that data is visible in your network tab, correct? Yesterday you only asked me question. Whenever we make any API call, you can see that data over there in the network call. What data you are passing, what data you are getting, correct or no?
Yeah.
But let's say you don't want user to understand that data. So you will encrypt that, correct?
Hmm.
So from your Angular application, you are encrypting some data, and that data API side they should decrypt it, correct?
Yeah.
So on
Correct.
both the side, you should use same algorithm to encrypt and
Yes.
decrypt.
Yes.
So in case of .NET, we have RSA encryption. So this will be, you can use it in Angular side. So Angular side, you will use this to encrypt the data with the key name, and same data, they will encrypt it on the .NET side by using the same key name. Just like crypto.js is there, right? Just like that RSA is also there. Okay. It's just different algorithm. Understood? See, Node.js also it supports. Okay. So try it. If you face any issue, let me know. I have worked on this. So means we had a requirement where from the backend side, we used to get some encrypted data that we had to decrypt in Angular. So we needed one library which we can use in Angular also and the .NET also. So again, like with Java also, there might be some library. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fine. Anyone
And
else?
finally, if possible, we can try to implement that OAuth also, Chetan, maybe.
ProAuth means
But the OAuth token, like JWT token, as a
JWT we
live.
have done, na?
Mm.
Interceptor JWT or identity or OAuth token.
That's fine that we manually added, but in full flow, I'm asking like from UI we will pass the username and password, and then it will go to OAuth, and then it will validate, and then it will send back
Okay,
the
.NET
token
side.
back to the yeah.
Okay, .NET.
The full integration.
.NET. Let me. I can show you the project. You want me to explain how we create the token in .NET?
No, in .NET I know, but
Hmm.
the full flow I'm asking like from
I
UI
have
to
no, from UI what we do, it's
using
just token we
interceptor.
pass. That's
Yeah.
it, right? The main thing is in the backend side, right? How we create the token, where we store our key, right?
Mm.
That is on the .NET side. JWT you have
Right.
implemented, na?
Yeah.
What you are looking, OAuth or identity?
Yes. Yes.
Identity or
Maybe
OAuth?
I'll explain you
Okay,
in
okay.
a
Fine, fine.
uh,
Okay, anyone else having any doubt? Okay, fine then. Others can left
Do
then.
you have idea on
Yeah.
Sir, can you explain GraphQL?
chatbot AI with .NET?
See, for chatbot or some notification, we need APIs also like that. So API will be socket-based programming, right? When you chat,
Mm-hmm.
when you send some message, another API should trigger data back, right? Socket-based
Right.
programming, we say it. So we need
Okay.
API like that. Okay. So in
Okay.
.NET we have, what is that? Signaler
Signal
or
error. Signal
Signaler,
error.
right?
Signal.
So in
Yeah.
.NET we have Signaler, which will help us to create the chat-based API. And in Angular,
Okay.
we have to create the zone. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, because let's say you have two browser. Just a minute. You have this one browser and you have this other browser. Okay. From here, in both the browser, you have the same application open. Okay. Let's say it's a notification or chat-based system. Once user pass some value, this browser should get the value. Means consider you have application open on this browser also, same application open on this browser also. You have
Yes.
something
Yes.
chat-based. User send a message from this. Immediately he should get it.
Yes.
How you will get it immediately? These are two different browser. You cannot pass the event
Right.
also, right?
Right.
How you will get it? What you will do? Will you make continuous API call to check if?
Yeah.
No, you cannot make continuous API call.
Yeah.
So there we create the zone. So whenever user send a message, it will trigger, it will emit some data, and wherever it is listening in the zone, there you get the subscribe.
Okay.
Okay. This is just theoretical. Okay, but again, like this, I will same thing I will try to implement, because Signaler also I need to implement. So once I done with the API, na, then we will again see. Okay, because
Okay.
we need the
Okay.
API, then only we can understand and implement the whole flow. Okay,
Okay.
fine. Yeah, Nagarjun, what you were
Sir, can
saying?
you explain the GraphQL?
Sorry, which were?
GraphQL.
GraphQL.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that searching thing, GraphQL.
API, sir, I think.
Means like in Amazon they use
No, sir. GRF. Can you type that one, sir?
GraphQL.
GRF PHQL. Yes,
This, na?
yes, sir.
See what happened with GraphQL. When you have a search box over here, okay, when you search, okay, let's
sir.
say if I search mobile, is it actually going to the database and searching this data, or is it possible like whenever user search, consider Amazon, overall India, overall world, they are using it. So is it possible that when you search, it should go to the database and find the result? Will it be a feasible scenario? Can
No,
we,
sir.
every time user search, can we go to the database and filter out the name of this? No, na?
No, sir.
That much time your database will be busy. Otherwise, Amazon won't work, right? So here, when your application is getting used by thousands user at a single time, or even lakhs also. Okay. So every time when user do something, you cannot go to your database and find the data. Otherwise, database will be busy for that time. Other user won't get that response. Correct? So what GraphQL does is like, whatever this data is there, it will store that data in the GraphQL. So instead of going to the database, whenever user search, it will look the data from your GraphQL. Okay? Because this is like what user is going to search over here. He's not going to do some extra operation. Searchings are limited, right? So they create a separate database for this searching only. What user is going to search. When you select on this, let's say mobile under 5, this is something key. When you select on this, then it will make the API call to the database, and then it will get the data. Understood? So by use GraphQL will sit between your actual API and your web application. When users will search, first it will interact with that GraphQL data. Once you select any particular data, then API will come into the picture. This is just a theory again. Okay. You are using this in your application or
Yeah.
anyone asks you?
In the one of the interview, they asked, sir.
So this is just the theoretical part. And I always explain the same thing because this is the proper example of GraphQL. Okay.
Okay, sir.
You understand the concept now? Because whenever user type, you cannot always make the API call, right?
Okay,
This
sir.
is kind of repeated data. Now every user is going to search it. So mostly search data they store into the GraphQL. So instead of looking from the database directly, they search the catch data or catch data, you can say. Okay. When user select some particular search, then they will get the data from your API. So you are not keeping your API busy for searching at least. Okay. It has very limited use case. When we work on a e-commerce application, there we mostly use it, or mostly website where the data, or let's say if we talk about Uber or Ola, right, where we search the location, that location data also means it's a mostly search data. So there also we can use the GraphQL. Okay. So just theoretical part it is there. I don't know like why they ask you specific this.
Why? Because there is a requirement. I'm implementing this one, sir.
Okay. Because it's very limited use case we have. Okay. Not everyone will ask you this. Okay, fine.